when I was 11, the dream was to, play at Old Trafford and blah, blah, blah. It obviously didn't work out like that. But I still look back with great fondness at the academy. I met loads of wonderful coaches that looked after me really well. But yeah, in terms of the players, like when I signed when I was 11, I think a scout took me over for the first time. And he said, there's this really good lad in your age group, Harry McTominay. So I'm kind of going around trying to look for this lad called Harry. And I said to him, I didn't see anyone. And he goes, no, it's Scott McTominay. So me and Scott were in the same age. And kind of grew up together really. And in regards to Marcus, he was a year younger than me. But even when I was like 11, 12, 13, there was always massive hype around Marcus. And obviously he's gone on to be a superstar. So
my guest today is in his very first season of high-impact football at Wrexham, where he's proven to be a tireless, tenacious force in midfield. Honestly, a cult hero in the making, capable of running defenders' legs off and circling back to wear the rest of them out too. He's also hit a personal best for goals this season, prompting his teammate, one Stephen Fletcher, to compare him to Leo Messi, because this gent can do it on a cold rainy night at the STōK Cold Brew Coffee, and it is a joy to raise a glass of the great brown stuff of Stoke to the pride of Blackburn. It's Mr. Ollie Rathbone.
Hi, Raj.
Ollie, what a time to speak to you. You're coming off a massive weekend, 3-0 win at the STōK Cold Brew Coffee against Burton Albion, which means this is honestly incredible. We're getting used to it, but it's still incredible. Wrexham are solidly in second place, an automatic promotion spot in their own hands now, destiny in their own hands. 6 points ahead of third place Wycombe, who do have a game in hand. I've got to ask you, what is the mood in that locker room right now with 5 games to go?
Oh yeah, it's buzzing, yeah. I think at the start of the season, everyone probably didn't know what to expect, with it being the club's first time back in League One for a while. But yeah, everyone's really pleased, not just with our position in the league, but how we're kind of conducting ourselves, how we're going about our business. And like I said, it's been 41 games so far and we're where we are on merit. So hopefully just got more in the tank for the last 5 games.
It's been a very robust season, very pragmatic season, a season in the business end where the results have really broken like they do for any well-planned, well-organised team. Has anyone actually said the P word out loud yet? Or do you not allow yourself?
No, I think that's something we've been really good at all season. We've not got carried away at all, and that a lot of that credit goes to the manager and the staff and the senior players who don't let anyone get carried away. And no, it's just business as usual. So we'll just focus on the Wigan game on Saturday and just take every game as it comes. It's 3 points up for grabs, just like it has been every other game this season.
Before we go any further, I'd like to thank STōK Cold Brew Coffee for making this entire series possible. STōK is a staple in my refrigerator, especially your STōK Espresso blend. They are proud to support Wrexham AFC, club that's taken the football world by storm with delight in the past couple of seasons. You can check out the full lineup of 48-ounce cold brew products. There's something new for everyone, from light roast to decaf to seasonal favourites in a refrigerated multi-serve format. Be sure to follow Wrexham AFC, and thanks again to STōK. But back to you, Ollie, for a moment, because this weekend, your Wrexham co-owner, Ryan Reynolds, was at the STōK Cold Brew Coffee. I think it's his first game of the calendar year. Your manager, Phil Parkinson, said he came in to see you all before kick-off. What did he say? What's that like when he comes in before a game? And what did he have to tell you?
No, it is something you don't think you'd get used to, but you do eventually, just because of the way he is. He's so personable and relatable and takes loads of time to get to know all the players, so you do genuinely feel like you know him. But yeah, before the game, he just kind of got the lads in the change rooms, just got us in a bit of a huddle and with some inspirational words that I won't repeat.
Why were they Phil Parkinson level swear words? Is that what the reality is?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'll say that, yeah.
I love that Phil Parkinson is rubbing off on Ryan Reynolds and not the other way round. But last week, Ryan and co-owner Rob McElhenney released a video where the two of them were debating whether and when they should fly over for the team's final matches in the run-in, essentially based on whether Wrexham was still in an automatic promotion spot or maybe in the playoffs at Wembley Stadium.
Hello, sir. Ryan!
Hey, Wrexham are in the final stretch of the season, and some people, not me, because I don't want to jinx it, are whispering about promotion.
When you hear that as a player, mentally, I mean, do you watch that stuff and does it affect your mindset?
No, I don't think it affects our mindsets. No, I think everyone's aware of it, but I think once you're kind of in the Wrexham bubble, you become very used to that type of stuff. So you kind of just brush it off and get down to business, really.
I think McElhenney, the day he brings the veto, that'll be the day. I love that idea of a Wrexham bubble, but I think the veto at the Stoke Kairas may pierce even the Wrexham bubble. But you said earlier in the season, players might have been satisfied with a top half finish, which is honestly something that we heard early on, often. Then executive director, the mighty Humphrey Carr, English toff Yao Ming, he came on this show before the season started, and he said, he used this phrase, he said he hoped this would be a season of consolidation, upgrading the training ground, settling into life at League One, which is like, you've got to remember where Wrexham have come from, listeners. They've got to grow to meet each of these new challenges. Wrexham hadn't experienced League One football in 19 years. But Ollie, was there a moment or a single game when that switch just flipped for you, for the team, when it became less about top half, less about League One survival, consolidation, and more about, just going next level?
No, I can't really pinpoint one particular game because I think over the course of the season, we've been so consistent. I don't think we've kind of had any real dips. We've been, like I said, our form's basically been very similar throughout the season. So I can't really picture one game, but I think we did really well over the Christmas period. In England, that's quite a telling time of the season where you have loads of games, and we picked up a lot of points over that period. And that's when I kind of thought, if people say where you are at Christmas, that's quite a good indicator of where you could finish. And I think we were in the top 2 throughout Christmas, and then you kind of think, right, halfway through the season now we can definitely do it.
Happy bloody New Year. Just close your ears for one moment, because I need to explain to our listeners in this moment that Wrexham have brought in a lot of new fans over here to football, and promotions may seem like just casual realities for them, but 3 promotions in 3 consecutive seasons, it is unheard of in the top tiers of British football. Honestly, what you're watching, viewers, is Wrexham essentially changing leagues faster than the kit man can iron the right patches on the sleeves. I think Swansea City, another word I should be saying on this show, earned 3 promotions in 4 years in the late 70s, but that's pretty well the closest anyone's gotten to what Wrexham, and I say could achieve, because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But getting back to you, Ollie, you can take the earmuffs off now. This season, it has been more pragmatic. It has been more robust. It has been about digging things out. It has been about late Stevie Fletcher winners. How do you understand from the inside what footballingly has gotten Wrexham to this point?
Well, I think it's important you've got to kind of acclimatise for every single game. And I think that's what we as a team and as staff do well. There's some games where you kind of have to go slightly more direct and focus on clean sheets. And then there's other games where you definitely have to be more progressive with the ball, keep the ball better. I think that's what we've got in abundance, really. We can really dip between those 2 systems really well. If it's on to play and make the extra pass, then we can do that. But if it's going to be a fight and the pitch isn't great, then we can roll our sleeves up and do that just as well.
God, who, by the way, in that squad, not saying there are bar fighters in that squad, but if you were in a bar fight and you had to pick someone from the whole Wrexham team to represent you, who would you choose? And is it James McLean or is it Stephen Fletcher?
I'll probably go both. Like a bit of a tag team type of thing, WWE back in the day. They both had incredible careers, and you don't do that if you don't know how to get stuck in, and when it gets tough, get your hands dirty.
Yeah, you don't do that unless you know that if you're in a fight in a pool hall, only the amateurs fight with the cues, the real winners fight with the balls. But we've got to get back to Wrexham. You've highlighted the mentality as a team. You've actually compared it once to Sir Alex Ferguson's teams at Manchester United, who had a kind of aura when you watch them in their pomp that could make opponents almost anticipate that United would score a late goal. I've always been fascinated by that, Ollie, because how do you, as a team made up of individual players, how do you develop that kind of collective mental toughness? Is it something that comes from the training ground, or is it something that just requires game after game time?
If I'm being honest, I don't really know the answer, and I don't think anyone in professional sport knows the answer. I think it's this kind of thing. You can't buy it, you can't do anything with it, but it just kind of grows naturally. But I would say that winning breeds winning, and this is a club that's got so used to winning that everyone knows that this club knows how to win games, and I think it just drips into people's mindsets and kind of becomes ever present, really. I know Ollie Palmer tells a story when they were in the National League, was he? like getting beat 5-2 to Dover or something like that. And he said him and Paul Mullin were like taking a centre kick and they just knew they were going to win 6-5, and I think they did. So that's kind of how it works, really.
That was a different kind of aura. That was a Ollie Palmer wants to take his shirt off aura. Therefore, it's going to be 6-5. But you're saying that is not something that you can plan. It's not something you can train. It's almost just an intangible, almost like a creature that develops in the course of a season and lives alongside you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, like you say, I do think it comes from the type of players that you bring in. You kind of have to bring players in with the right mentality and ultimately that are winners. I think that's what I can amount it to the best, really, yeah. In
those late goal moments, and there have been so many of them, it felt for a period as if every week Wrexham were, really in a knife fight. Cue late Stephen Fletcher goal. Jose Mourinho always used to say he can smell a goal before it comes. As a player, when you're on the field, can you feel those moments? Can you almost sense the momentum shifting, like some kind of an animal can sense an earthquake before the tremors start?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, definitely. You just feel it in the atmosphere, especially when you're playing at home, because when the crowd gets going, it's loud, and you can just feel it, and it gives everyone a real lift. And like I said, with the club kind of being synonymous with scoring late winners and being winners, you can just kind of feel it brewing in the air. You just know that it's kind of a matter of time. But to be fair, a lot of that comes from grinding the teams down over a long period of time. A lot of teams, when they come to our home ground, they are kind of like sat in, they're kind of prepared to take a point because they know how strong we are at home. So I think it definitely does come from 70, 80 minutes of really grinding them down, and then they eventually break.
I want to go back to the beginning of your story, Ollie, because you grew up around the game. Your dad, Mick, had almost a 20-year career as a professional, spent most of the time with Blackburn Rovers, before he became a team physiotherapist. Actually joined my hero, young David Moyes, in the backroom staff at Preston North End. He was then at Moyes' beautiful Everton 1.0. And in his first book, The Smell of Football, I think Jose Mourinho ripped it off your dad. He wrote about taking little 6-year-old Ollie, who he described as football mad, to Everton's training ground. You met Duncan Ferguson, who I believe would let you steer his Range Rover around the parking lot. Is it true Wayne Rooney would have a kick around with you? Tell us the true story, and what are your memories of those days?
Well, yeah, like you said, grew up in a football household, absolute football mad. My dad started football at 16, he's 66 now, he's basically still in the game, so he's been in football for 50 years. So yeah, that was the only sport for me in my house. But yeah, I used to, when he was at Everton, on some of the quiet days, he'd take me in. I'd be allowed to have a kick around and meet the players and stuff, and it was the best. Yeah, I remember like handing Wayne Rooney, who was like on the verge of superstardom, like a drink and stuff, and yeah, they were the glory days.
What drink did you hand Wayne Rooney? 16-year-old Wayne Rooney.
I think it was a Powerade. I think it was a Powerade or something like that. Maybe a Lucozade. I think they were sponsored by Lucozade at the time.
They were. But Ollie, that is great covering. We all know it was a vodka tonic. But Duncan Ferguson, the Range Rover, just big dunk, beautiful dunk, looking at you and being like, yep, I think 6-year-old Ollie, it's time to learn to drive. Take us there.
Yeah, I can only vaguely remember that, really. I also remember he always used to kind of, so he'd be driving and I'd kind of be sat on his lap. I'd be doing the steering, he'd be doing the pedals. But yeah, so that was always good fun. But he always used to give me 20 quid as well, which was the best part. So I used to love going into Everton because I'd like just play football all day. And then there was always 20 quid. But as I got a bit older, like 9 or 10, 20 quid's kind of stopped. But yeah, and the, seated rides on the Range Rover stopped as well. But no, it was good when I was younger, yeah.
Did your dad's career influence your own? Was it those formative moments that made you think about these were the boot prints that you wanted to follow him?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, obviously my dad's a huge inspiration for me. He's really well regarded in the sport, and but yeah, he's kind of had a massive impact on me in the fact that he just insists that I just have to enjoy it as much as I can. His career was kind of plagued, and he regrets it because he didn't enjoy it enough, and he kind of didn't handle the pressure as well as he wished he had done. So his kind of whole mantra to me was, look, the only thing I want from you today is to work your hardest and enjoy it as much as you can. So, and I think that has definitely helped because he's put no negative pressure on me whatsoever throughout my career, and that's been a huge help to me.
You ended up joining Manchester United's youth academy when you were an 11-year-old. You had 8 years there. You're on teams with Marcus Rashford, Scott McTominay, current Crystal Palace goalkeeper Dean Henderson. What were they like? Do you remember looking at Marcus and Scott and thinking, yes, or was just everyone, just individuals, just fighting for air, for oxygen, for a future?
No, yeah, I absolutely loved my time in the academy. I mean, it didn't kind of, like, obviously when I signed for 11, when I was 11, the dream was to, play at Old Trafford and blah, blah, blah. It obviously didn't work out like that. But I still look back with great fondness at the academy. I met loads of wonderful coaches that looked after me really well. But yeah, in terms of the players, like when I signed when I was 11, I think a scout took me over for the first time. And he said, oh, there's this really good lad in your age group, Harry McTominay. So I'm kind of going around trying to look for this lad called Harry. And I said to him, I didn't see anyone. And he goes, oh, no, it's Scott McTominay. So me and Scott were in the same age. And kind of grew up together really. Because he was from Lancaster, I was from Blackburn. So we used to like car school a little bit as well. So yeah, me and him still really good friends. And in regards to Marcus, yeah, he was a year younger than me. But even when I was like 11, 12, 13, there was always massive hype around Marcus. And obviously he's gone on to be a superstar. So.
And Scott McTominay's gone on to be Italian.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. I saw him do an interview the other day and he was raving about Italian tomatoes. So yeah, I think he's changed now.
I know, it's amazing. He was talking, if you've not seen it, it's with my friend Rory Smith, and Scott McTominay talking about Italian tomatoes is the poetry that the world needs right now. You also have your current Wrexham teammate Sam Smith, and you previously said United youth and reserve players are surrounded by photos of the team's legendary players. They're immersed in that culture. And quote, you realise very quickly how difficult it is to become a professional footballer. Ollie, can you describe that pressure that you felt, even as an 11-year-old, at a club like United?
Yeah, so Sam was the year below me, but at Man U you did a lot of like mixed training. So me and him trained a lot together for a long time, like just before he obviously went to sign for Reading. But yeah, like I said, I absolutely loved being at Man U. I think because maybe where I'm from, like in England, it's like the Northwest, and Manchester's quite like a local club to everyone. You kind of forget that is one of the greatest academies in world football. I don't think a club's got that kind of history going back to like the Busby Babes and then the class of 92, and I just felt when you were walking through the corridors it was kind of like history. And to be fair, my youth team coach Paul McGuinness, whose dad I think was manager of Manchester United, he's like a legendary youth coach, and he like never let you forget just how fortunate you are. You were really like surrounded by it. He'd take you to Old Trafford and say, oh, this is where Bobby Charlton used to practice his finishing, and Dennis Law would come here and do this and whatnot, and that you go to the Cliff training ground where the class of 92 did all their training and stuff, and you were really steeped in the history, and I absolutely loved that about being there, and I'm incredibly proud to have spent so long there.
You were there for 8 years. You progressed from the academy to the reserve squad. There was a point where you became frustrated with the opportunities that you believed you would be getting or wouldn't be getting under then manager Louis van Gaal. And with that limited amount of game time, you started to talk it over with your dad and with your coaches, made a very difficult decision, I'm sure, to leave United. It's a huge moment for a 19-year-old. Ollie, can you take us there? Talk about what you were feeling when you left United. Did it feel like a footballing dream was coming to an end, or does it in a way just make you more determined, more motivated?
Yeah, I remember it so clearly the day that I kind of found out that I was leaving, because so basically when I was about 15, 16, as everyone grew, I just didn't grow, and I just couldn't. I was kind of okay in training, but in the 11v11 games I just couldn't compete. But this is where I'm like so grateful to Man U, because a lot of clubs, they don't have like the financial capabilities to kind of keep a player on who's not going to feature in the youth team as such. So most clubs would have probably just, oh, he's too small, and like casting me aside. But Paul McGuinness and Tony Whelan and Warren Joyce, coaches like that, they kind of put their arm around me and said, look, we'll look after you, and gave me a YT there. I kind of did more education than the other scholars, because that was something my dad was really keen on, because when he retired from football, he had to go back to university and he didn't want that to happen to me. But then when I was in the reserves, I was then like full time with the rest of the lads and just training as much as I could, but there was just too many players that were ahead of me in the pecking order. And then you turn up to like reserve games and you'd have players like dropping down, like Adnan Januzaj, Memphis Depay, Wayne Rooney even played in our reserve games once. So there's just no pathway for me whatsoever. So, but they thought the attributes that I had with being like such a hard worker and kind of like a good lad, they thought that I was ready to kind of step into men's football and league football. And that's what I did with Rochdale. Yeah.
You joined Rochdale, then in League One when you were 19, had 5 seasons with the Dale before moving to Rotherham in 2021. You experienced championship level football in your last 2 seasons there. And last August, you became one of 7 players who signed with mighty Wrexham during that summer transfer window. 8 if you count goalkeeper Arthur Conquo making that move from Arsenal permanent. God bless you, Arthur. Ollie, when you're a player in the transfer market, and I imagine you had a number of options with your agent, can you talk about how when you find out that this Wrexham, how they stand out when they come in from you? Because it does, when you're hearing about it, it does immediately feel different to other opportunities, right?
Yeah, it's different. Like it's a special kind of thing. This type of opportunity doesn't come around very often in English football, to be part of something so special. So as soon as my agent kind of spoke to the manager and they had a positive conversation and they kind of said like, oh yeah, this is something we want to do, it was a no-brainer for me, and I was desperate to jump on board and try and be a part of something.
Can you put it into footballing terms? Like, really, what does it feel like when you would have had other opportunities? You would have talked it through with your agent. When your agent said Wrexham, take us to that conversation and what goes through your mind, what the value proposition seems like.
I think it was actually me that first kind of mentioned it to him, because at the end of last season, we kind of, obviously with Rotherham getting relegated from the Championship, the kind of aim was for me to kind of stay in the Championship with another club. But then we also spoke about, right, well, what if a big League One club would come in for you and then we could maybe get promoted back to the Championship? And he kind of mentioned a few, and I said, well, what about Wrexham? Do you think they'll be up there this season? And he said, yeah, okay, I'll give Phil a ring. And then, it all kind of stemmed from there, really.
Did you negotiate getting a call from Rob and Ryan as part of the deal, or did you just have to settle for the dulcet sound of Humphrey Carr to seal the deal?
No, I only had the manager. I had a 5-10 minute Zoom call with the manager, because that's kind of all it needed, really. I was sold on the idea of being there as soon as it kind of came to the table. So, yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting all the other gang a bit later on.
Well, what's Phil Parkinson like for Neil? We've had him on this show many, many, many times, and I've really come to enjoy and really, he's such a singular, calm, stoic force, I think, like really the anchor to Wrexham's success. What's he really like from the inside?
No, he's brilliant to work with, as are all the staff. And I think that's one of the reasons why Wrexham's been so successful, because he's been at the helm and he's recruited like fantastic players first and foremost, but also like incredible staff behind the scenes. But yeah, as a manager, he's incredibly focused, works really hard. He puts loads of hours into researching the opposition and making sure that we're prepared as fully as possible. And he always supports us, really, kind of never throws us under the bus. We're definitely his players, and he looks after us.
Well, what's it like when you join a new team with such a large number of players, Ollie? I mean, 7 really. Let's say over half a dozen. There's a huge group of you, new to a culture, new to a system, new to a manager, also trying to remember the other players' names. I'm imagining trying to like Google map your way to the training ground constantly.
No, it is a lot, and I think that's sometimes something that supporters kind of overlook. You think, oh, we've signed a player, he needs to hit the ground running straight away, but there's usually so many other factors. But no, to be fair, everyone there was really welcoming, but I did kind of find it a little bit difficult when I first joined, just kind of stepping into a completely new environment with a group of players that were really tight-knit and had been together for quite a long time. And I'd been at my previous club for a number of years and felt kind of really at home there, part of the furniture. So I definitely kind of stepped out of my comfort zone. But over the next few weeks and months, I kind of really got involved with the group and really felt a part of it. And I think it's probably the best group I've worked with in my career so far, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
Ollie, is it different to any other setup that you've ever been in? Like there is something utterly, we all know, unique about this Wrexham narrative. But as a footballer, you played at, in the champion, you played in higher levels, but there is something singular. What's that like to experience for the first time?
Yeah, I say this to a lot of people. I think from the outside, obviously, it looks kind of a crazy place to be and that every day is wild. But when you actually step into the change room every day, it's just like all the other football clubs in the EFL, kind of normal people that have had regular careers. And so I think it's kind of when you're actually inside the building, it's business as usual. Just obviously with sometimes you meet Channing Tatum, but but on the whole, day to day, it's pretty much just standard, really.
Business as usual plus Channing Tatum.
Yeah,
which becomes usual though in a way, huh?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. You still kind of find it hard to get used to that one, but yeah, good fun.
You've said that whatever it was, it took you some time to settle in at the STōK Kairas. You weren't signed in time to make the first game of the season against Wycombe. You had a couple of knocks that kept you from establishing yourself as a regular starter. It wasn't until week 17 that you scored your first goal, November, at home against Exeter City. When you do finally get on the score sheet at a new club, what do you feel like in that moment? Do you feel a mental pressure off? Is it mostly relief? Is it the same joy as always? Did you play more freely after that first one?
No, it definitely is. I think a weight off your shoulders, especially for kind of like an attacking midfielder or definitely a striker. It is something you want to kind of get ticked off early doors because you don't want it kind of dragging on and people saying, oh, he's not got his first goal yet. And obviously when I got that kind of start, like you said, week 17, I knew it was a huge chance for me to kind of cement myself in the team. So to win the game and ultimately score, I was, I think you can tell from my celebration after that goal. I think I was only a yard out when I scored, but I was really, really pleased, yeah.
You talk about that culture, and there are so many strong leaders, so many experienced voices in that locker room. Your captain, incredible human being, a clenched fist of a player, James McLean, Scottish Samurai, Stephen Fletcher. Both not only have championship experience, but they made almost 350 combined appearances in the Premier League. Can you talk about their influence on that locker room? Do people turn to them for advice, for guidance? What are they talking about at this point of the season?
To be fair to Jimmy and Fletch, they don't like hold themselves any higher than the rest of the lads due to the career they've had. They kind of just get on with things as much as usual, and but they are great influences to have. But we have lots of fantastic senior players, like Mark Howard's another one off the top of my head. They just kind of have not so much an aura, but a kind of a respect around the room. They've been there, they've done it, and you kind of look to them to know that they're not going to go under, they're not going to be flustered by anything, they're going to be calm and collective, and ultimately they're really popular and really genuine guys, so that's the main thing.
They're both still playing, this is incredible, playing competitively in their 30s. Stephen Fletcher is 38 years young. He's a decade older than you are, Ollie. Also older than all the Die Hard films. He's Wrexham's top scorer. What does playing alongside them every week, training beside them every day, what's that done for your game and made you think about your own future and how long you can keep going?
Well, it's one of them when you kind of training alongside these guys every day and they're working really hard, you kind of think, oh, wow, he's 10 years older than me. I can't have a day off today if he's not taking a day off. Like, James McLean trains harder than anyone else I've ever played with. He's a maniac in a good way. But every single session, he's at it 100% in the gym before training, in the gym after training. He leaves like no stone unturned to be at his best on a Saturday. So that just ultimately makes you want to do the best, because if you see the captain doing it and senior players doing it, it just kind of rubs off from everyone in the squad, because everyone knows then that they can't afford to cut corners, they'll still be caught up on it, really.
5 games left to go in this season before the season finale away at Lincoln City. Phil Parkinson, your manager, again a gent who goes through F-bombs like Oreo goes through cream filling. He said that the team needs to be, quote, relentless. That's his motif through this final stretch. He said every single player needs to be, quote, prepared to run the hard yards on the football pitch and put their bodies on the line. I mean, Ollie, in your league, Wrexham have already played 50 games in all competitions. I think you've played in, do you know how many you've played in?
Probably 45, maybe 40, 45.
43. Not.
Oh, nice.
We'll split the difference. Yeah.
Split the difference, yeah.
How does it feel, by the way? I mean, you've gone the full 90, an exhausting 18 times. How does your body feel at this stage in the season?
No, it feels okay, to be honest. Kind of that's why we kind of train how we do, so that we're prepared to do it. And I think when you get to this stage of the season, even if you do have little knocks and niggles and stuff like that, the adrenaline and the desire to see the job home carries you through, really.
Can we talk about the mental pressure then of the next 5 weeks? 5 opponents Wrexham have left to play. I think Charlton Athletic are the only one who are currently above 10th place in the table. You've said that on your previous teams. You've always been on the lower place team, the one with nothing to lose. And that going into games against tougher opponents actually felt easier. Mentally, does it feel like a lot of the pressure's on Wrexham now?
A little bit, but kind of that's just the pressure we put on ourselves every week going out representing that shirt and that badge. So that's kind of been the same all season. But in terms of the opposition, people sometimes say, oh, they've got nothing to play for, so that should be an easier game. But in my experience, I've found that sometimes they're more difficult because the players are kind of have no pressure on them. They can kind of relax a little bit more. So I know our running kind of looks easiest on paper, but we won't take that into consideration really. And like we've done all season, it's just 3 points up for grabs at the end of the day.
3 of the games remaining are on the road. I've got to say, Wrexham's travelling support has been, as it has been in every season of these promotions, it's been unbelievable. And not just because your parents go to almost every game, Ollie. When Wrexham played Exeter City, end of March, 1,000 Wrexham supporters made the 450-mile, 8-hour round trip to St James's Park in the south of England. What does it mean to you as a player to hear 1,000 voices singing "Town Away"? I like it when you're there on the road. No,
it's really, really special, and all the players in the dressing room know how lucky we are to be at a club that takes that kind of travelling support. You know, when you're talking to me before about why you want to sign for Wrexham, that's a massive, massive part of it, because you know that not many clubs get that level of away support. So, you know, I think as players we're very, very privileged to get that, and it's a huge motivating factor when we go to away games, knowing that you've got them fans that are paying the hard-earned money to come and support you. It's an incredible thing. So yeah, we're very fortunate.
Can you hear them, Ollie? How aware are you of the crowd, of the supporters, of the individual voices where the game's on, you're actually on the field?
Oh yeah, you can definitely hear it, and the lads love it, they buzz off it, and yeah, if we've won away from home, we're usually singing "Town Away, I Like It" in the change room ourselves, so yeah, we can definitely hear them. By
the way, I do want to say one more time, it is incredible what Wrexham, and I say very much could accomplish at the end of this season. I'd just say none of you'll have to buy a drink at the Fat Boar pub ever again. There's a legendary American football coach, Vince Lombardi. He's credited with telling one of his players not to dramatically celebrate when they score, but to act like they've been in the end zone before. Does it feel really for Wrexham that that's the challenge? You've got to act like you've been there too. It's just well done, lads, on to the next one until the end of the season. Is that kind of the mentality?
Definitely, yeah. And I've kind of said before, that kind of struck me the most when I've kind of been in the building. Every time we win a game, there's no like elaborate celebrations, nothing major like that. Even when we beat Wickham a few weeks ago, for example, that was kind of deemed as a massive game, and we kind of put the music on in the change rooms after the game, turned it up a bit, and Steve Parkin just came in, turned it down, and said we don't want to act like we're winning the league here. So little things like that really rub off on you, and you kind of don't get carried away with the little wins here and there, but so it just kind of gets you focused onto the next one.
Apropos of nothing, but just for the American listeners, Ollie, can you describe? You played a lot in the Championship. I think you've had 80 games for Rotherham. Can you just explain, footballingly, to our audience the difference between League One and the Championship, just from a competitive reality?
Yeah, so obviously the finances are massively different. You've got, I think the average club loses maybe £1 million a week on average in the Championship. It's insane. So obviously the calibre of player you're coming up against is a lot better. And for me, the biggest difference is if you kind of give the ball away a bit loosely in League One, you'll probably get away with it maybe. But in the Championship, you're much more likely to get punished because the individual players just got a lot more quality. But as a group, if you kind of get promoted out of League One and you're a really strong group, you can be really successful in the Championship. I think as Ipswich showed the last time they got promoted out of League One, they then go straight up out of the Championship to the Premier League. So it can be done, but there is I think it's probably the biggest step up throughout the 4 leagues in English football, League One to the Championship.
I definitely do not want to get ahead of myself nor lead you there. So last question for you, Ollie Rathbone. If you could speak directly to Wrexham fans, to Wrexham Nation in North Wales, but also those around the world, about all that is to come, all they can expect between now and the end of the season, Saturday, May 3rd, what would you tell them?
Well, obviously, kind of we can't promise the results. You never know what's going to happen on an individual game day. You could get a refereeing decision, you could be unfortunate or whatever, but what I can promise is that you'll get a team that's going to give absolutely everything to achieve something historic, really, which is 3 promotions back to back, which I don't think's been done before. So no matter what happens, no matter how it ends, I'm sure you'll be proud of the team's efforts.
Godspeed. God bless. Ollie, I think you've got a future in global diplomacy. That was one of the great answers. I wish you huge joy. I raise my STōK to you, to getting Danny DeVito down to that Wrexham bubble. I'm trying to manifest that and make that happen. You're an incredible human being. You've given so many listeners so much joy watching you play with ferocity and tenacity through the whole season. To you, to your family, to your future. Thanks so much, mate.
No, thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Courage.